Today at Oneness Lore, we are talking about when a couple wish to buy a commercial investment property and the structures in which they can choose to have them in. One of them is a company structure, and that'll be the structure that we are focusing on today. So when buying property in Queensland, holding it as a company, it can have its advantages and also its challenges. And choosing the right structure for you is going to vary depending on your long-term goals. It's also going to depend on your tax responsibilities and asset protection requirements that you need. So, to put simply, a company is what we consider to be an entity in its own right. It's not considered to be a natural person. However, it will have directors and beneficiaries. Usually in this scenario, those directors and beneficiaries will be you and your partner. And let's get into some of the advantages. So, one of the advantages is that it does provide some asset protection. There are limitations. However, because a company is its own entity, then it is considered to have its own rights and responsibilities. So if something's go wrong, usually the liabilities of the company are held with the company. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more further down the track. There is some limitations to that. Now, another potential advantage is that there can be potential tax advantages compared to some other structures or natural persons ownership. This is the part where we remind you to have a conversation with your accountant and your financial planner to get some further advice around the tax implications and tax variations of different structures to hold the property in. And then the third one is around simplicity of the ownership. Now, compared to trust structures and other kinds of structures, this structure, having a company, is considered to be a lot more simple to manage and administer. Now, moving on to some of the challenges of having the company as the holder of the property. One of them being is that usually you don't qualify for capital gains tax discounts. Again, have to have a conversation with your accountant about this to evaluate your circumstances and whether that applies or not to you. And another challenge is that there are these kind of double tax considerations. So the profits that the company make are taxed, and then again, when they're distributed in the form of, as they say, dividends to you as a director or a shareholder, shall I say, then you're having to pay tax on that again. Another challenge is limited asset protection in place. So one of them being that most lenders will require personal guarantees of company loans. So then your own personal assets are being brought into the picture. And it's also good to remind you that directors have additional legal responsibilities and liabilities as well when it comes to having a company. And then the last challenge is mostly around costs and compliance. So, there's regular asset fees, there's company returns, there are things like record keeping and director's duties, and these kinds of things, they cost you resources, whether that be through financial resources and or time. Now, some other elements to think of or to consider are transfer duty. When you're purchasing a property under a company, you won't qualify for exemptions or concessions. There's also additional land tax implications, and you'll also need to ensure the company is set up properly for your circumstance before you sign the contract. If you get it wrong at the start and you have to go back and change the entity, change how the property is held, you'll often have to pay additional transfer duty, and there'll be additional tax implications and other costs involved. I haven't met someone that is happy about having to pay tax on something again that they already consider that they are in possession of. So at the end of the day, the right structure for you is going to depend a lot on your financial position, your goals, and your risk profile. And us as solicitors at Oneness Lore, we can have these discussions with you. We can go through that with you, as well as also in partnership with your accountant and your financial planner. So if you are looking at setting up a company to buy commercial real estate, get in contact with us. If you already have such a structure set up in place and you're reconsidering whether this aligns with where you are now, has your goals changed? Have your long-term plans changed? Has your financial position changed? Then get in contact with us as well. Our website, www.onennesslore.com.au, and our email, info@onennesslore.com.au, Lore, Lore. And we'll see you soon.